9 Unsolved mysteries involving disturbing phone messages. In contemporary society, phone messages and voicemails are more annoying than helpful. Since cell phones with call displays became prevalent, messages are usually left only in emergencies or when your parents call. Still, there are cases of messages becoming integral clues in some truly disturbing unsolved mysteries. 1. The murders of Albert Alan Challam and Mayer Lehman. In this wealthy community of horse farms and stately homes, an ornate statue atop a Grecian fountain stands as a silent witness to the dark secrets of the sprawling mansion behind it. If the statue could talk, it might solve a mystery that has baffled a cadre of investigators for 15 years, who executed 2 penny stock promoters, gangland style, in the largely unfurnished home behind the blackened gold, wrought iron gates. A decade and a half has passed since Albert Alan Challam and Mayer Lehman were found bullet-riddled and face down in pools of their own blood on the marble floor of the dining room of the white brick Colonia along Bluebell Road, in a community that has boasted residents like Bruce Springsteen and Queen Latifah. Although authorities still have not established the identity of the men's killer or killers, they have uncovered a tangled web of the victims' shady financial deals that could have provided more than enough motive for vengeance. But despite the recent anniversary of the crimes on October 25, 1999, details about the investigation into the homicides are almost as mysterious as the killings themselves. The FBI's Newark and New York offices are involved in the case, as is the Monmouth County Prosecutor's Office. Officials with the prosecutor's office won't comment because they say it is an active investigation. The FBI didn't say much more. The FBI cannot comment on the existence or non-existence of an investigation, Special Agent Barbara Woodruff of the FBI's Newark office said in response to a media inquiry. Under limited circumstances, like this one, we can acknowledge an investigation is open, but do not provide any details of the investigation. What is known is that 2 of Challam's friends were planning to spend the night at the Bluebell Road mansion and had been in frequent phone contact with him on October 25, 1999. But when the 2 friends couldn't reach Challam after 8:30 p.m., they went to the mansion about 1 a.m. the next day and made the grisly discovery. John K., Monmouth County prosecutor at the time, said in the aftermath of the killings, the 41-year-old Challam, who lived in the mansion owned by his girlfriend's father, had been shot once in the chest and 5 times in the head and neck, authorities said at the time. Lehman, 37, a married father of 5 from Muir, New York, was shot once in the leg and 3 times in the head, they said. Another Colts Neck murder case is pending in court. Both were laying face down on the marble floor of the dining room, near a long table scattered with piles of paperwork, Kay said. Inches away from the right hands of both of the dead men were their cellular telephones, which kept ringing after they were dead, Kay revealed then. The victims most likely knew their killers, as there were no signs of forced entry, he has said. We believed from the beginning it had all the earmarks of a mob-related hit, Kay said in a recent telephone interview. But what appeared to be crucial evidence at the scene turned out to be unfruitful, Kay explained. One of the things that intrigued detectives were drops of blood that went up the semi-spiral staircase, Kay said in the recent interview. Everyone had the impression the drops of blood were coming off a weapon the killer had used, and now the killer was going upstairs to look for another victim, he said. Investigators later learned it was one of Challam's 2 English bulldogs, to whom he was deeply attached, that got its nose in a pool of blood and left the bloody trail, Kay said. The 2 bulldogs, named Sophia and Spiky, were found in Challam's bedroom, unharmed. Absent from the home at the time of the murders was Challam's girlfriend, Kimberly Scarola, and her 13-year-old son. Both had left for Florida shortly before the murders, and Challam had planned to meet them there, authorities said. Earlier that summer, Challam, Scarola and the teenager moved into the mansion that Scarola's father had purchased months earlier for $1.1 million. Authorities noted after the killings that, oddly, the expensive home had hardly any furnishings in it. Both Scarola and Lehman's widow, Tamara, were ruled out as suspects, authorities said. But the investigation had plenty of other directions to go in, as the dead men's questionable business dealings spanned the globe. Challam and Lehman were partners in a website registered in Panama and managed out of Budapest, Hungary, that falsely hyped high-risk, low-priced stocks that the pair would dump at a profit once their prices had been manipulated. Both men already were known to investigators probing shady investment deals, and Chalem was linked to organized crime and published reports after their deaths. Chalem had worked at A.S. Goldman, a defunct brokerage house that at one time received its mail at a commercial gym, Body by Boris and Red Bank. Earlier in 1999, the brokerage was charged in a Manhattan grand jury indictment with bilking investors out of almost $100 million, but Chalem was not among the 33 people who were charged. The previous year, Lehman paid $630,000 to the Federal Securities and Exchange Commission to settle charges that he illegally helped to manipulate the stock of a small company that cheated unsuspecting investors out of $12 million. The murders, which occurred at a time when authorities were turning their attention to mob connections in the volatile world of penny stocks, led to speculation that the victims were cooperating with investigators and were killed to be silenced or punished, or that they had ties to American or Russian organized crime. A Business Week article in December of 1999, citing unnamed sources, said Chalem was a key link between the penny stock trade and organized crime. The article said Chalem was a close associate of Philip C. Abramo, a reputed capo in the Newark-based DeCavalcante crime family who at the time was implicated in a stock fraud case. The Huffington Post reported in 2011 that Chalem had been partners in a Key West, Florida, scuba diving business with Brooklyn mobster Alphonse Persico, who is serving life in prison for the 1999 rub-out of an underboss. That article said the DeCavalcante crime family was suspected in the Colts neck slayings early on. Court documents have revealed that investigators also were looking at the pair's links to Russian gangsters. A sealed court ruling of an associate of the victims indicated that prosecutors believed Chalem's and Lehman's lives were threatened by several Russian émigrés, and that their associate also feared for his life. Prosecutors brought the associate, Joe T. Logan Jr. of Clifton, before a grand jury investigating the homicides in 2000, but Logan, believed to be the last person to see Chalem and Lehman alive, refused to answer questions. The grand jury record was sealed, but it made its way into the public record during Logan's divorce proceeding in 2004. Logan gained limited notoriety in the late 1990s, when he promised, but failed, to save the bankrupt Newark-based Kiwi International Airlines. He was not a suspect in the murders, but he was at the Bluebell Road mansion that morning, and later that evening he placed 6 calls to the house, authorities have said. The questions prosecutors wanted Logan to answer before the grand jury revealed that 2 Russian émigré brothers named Boris and Michael Vax had at some point visited Logan to talk to him about Chalem, and that at one point months before the murders, Chalem had punched Logan in the face, possibly because Logan cost the Vax brothers money in a stock deal but blamed the loss on Chalem, authorities have said. Both Vax brothers had served federal prison sentences for roles in a scheme to defraud the government of gasoline taxes. Michael Vax also had been charged with homicide in Brooklyn in 1986, but the Brooklyn District Attorney's Office said it did not have any records of the case. Last year, Michael Vax was charged by the U.S. Attorney's Office in Manhattan in a so-called pump and dump penny stock scheme. One of the reasons prosecutors wanted to question Logan was to try to find out who left a message on Chalem's answering machine around the time of the murders, saying, "Call me back, emergency." They also wanted to ask him about the identities of the Russian émigrés who had threatened to kill Chalem and Lehman at a meeting also attended by Logan, Alan Barry Witz, and at least one other person. Witz, a Beverly Hills lawyer, pleaded guilty in federal court in Newark in 2004, to manipulating the stock of a company that Chalem and Lehman were promoting on their website at the time they were killed. The FBI's Woodruff said the agency's Newark office has focused primarily on the fraudulent activities that came to light as a result of the homicide case, while the New York office is focused more on the killings themselves. Meanwhile, former prosecutor Kay believes someone in trouble with the law could be the person who will solve the mystery of what happened 15 years ago behind the black and gold, wrought iron gates on Bluebell Road. It's a matter of sooner or later, somebody is going to get jammed up somehow, and they'll tell you everything you want to know in order to get a break, Kay said. 2. The death of Louis Fields. On Valentine's Day 2014, Christina Fields of Colorado Springs got the most heartbreaking news anyone could receive. Her 13-year-old son, Louis, had hanged himself with his belt in his school's washroom just after lunch. Immediately, everyone thought that it was suicide and that Louis had been bullied. Christina was obviously devastated by the news. But the more she thought about it, the less it made sense. For example, the previous night, Louis had been grounded and told not to move while he sat at the dinner table. His family even recorded him with a camera. As soon as no one was watching, he would act silly. It was not behavior consistent with someone who would commit suicide less than 24 hours later. When Christina Fields has a moment between taking care of her other 4 kids, she finds herself in her oldest son Louis's bedroom. "I left his bed the way he left it. That was the shirt he wore the night before. I come in here and I hug it and I smell his bathrobe," Christina said. She knows Louis is never going to sleep in that bed, wear the shirt or be able to be hugged again. It was Valentine's Day when he left for Carson Middle School and never came back home. "You don't ever picture saying goodbye and I love you, have a good day to be the last goodbye, I love you, have a good day that you're going to say," Christina said. Just after lunch on February 14th, Louis was found unresponsive in the boys' bathroom. They found him with his belt around his neck, Christina said. "They all think he killed himself, so they all jumped to the conclusion that he was bullied," Christina said. After the shock, there was guilt. But it didn't add up. A video, shot the night before, shows Louis sitting at the dining room table. He was not supposed to move because he's been grounded. But as soon as no one is looking, Louis begins goofing around with the on-camera dot and smiling. He wasn't sad, he didn't say anything, he was smiling when he was at the bus stop, Christina said. It wasn't until around a week after Louis' death that Christina was checking through the dozens of voicemails on her phone that she spotted one with her son's name. It was from January 14th, exactly 1 month before his death. "I see his name and I'm like, what, because Louis never left me messages," Christina said. "It was an accident. A butt dial." Christina remembered the phone call because she had called him right back. "He had accidentally called me," Christina said. The message is tough to understand, but you can hear panting at the beginning of the message. You hear Louis talking about a friend choking him again. Later you hear pass out. Christina believes her son and his friends were into playing the chokeout game. "I had never heard of that. Kids choke themselves for fun? That's got to be the craziest thing I've ever heard," Christina said. "You just have to type it into YouTube and it shows you how to do it." According to the Centers for Disease Control, the choking game is played by older children and teens to get a brief high. A study shows that boys are most at risk by playing the game. 87% of those who have died are boys. Most are between the ages of 11 and 16. Nearly all the children who have died from playing the game were alone. "When kids start playing by themselves they use belts," Christina said. She also says Louis had asked a friend to go to the bathroom with him. "Why do you ask a friend to go with you? You don't ask a friend to come help you kill yourself," Christina said. Christina has given her phone to investigators from Fort Carson so they can look into the possibility that Louis died from playing the choking game, not suicide. "Nothing is comforting, but it's better to think to know that he died accidentally," Christina said. She wants parents to learn about the choking game and to talk with their kids about it. "It seems kind of silly, like okay, don't forget to look both ways before you cross the street, don't forget to put your seatbelt on, and hey, by the way, don't play the choking game at school," Christina said. "It's not a game. This could end your life. This could end your buddy's life." 3. The abandonment of Jesus Perez Flores. On May 18, 2003, a male toddler was found wandering around a modest neighborhood in Bakersfield, California. No one in the neighborhood recognized the child, so the police were called. They quickly realized that the boy had been abandoned. He only spoke Spanish, and the police thought that the boy called himself Mateo. Unlike many children who were abandoned, Mateo was wearing new, clean clothes, and his hair was freshly cut. He was healthy and well-fed. But Mateo didn't know where he lived. He said that he was 2 years old, that he had 2 brothers and a dog, and that his mother's name was Zasha. News that the boy had been found reached international audiences in the hopes that someone would come forward with knowledge about the child. On May 23, 5 days after Mateo was found, a voicemail was left for the lead detective on the case. The woman claimed to be the mother of the boy, but she said that his name was Jesus Perez Flores. The confusion about the boy's name occurred because the man who found Jesus was named Mateo. The caller said that she was dying of cancer and that her husband was abusive. She wanted someone to adopt Jesus so that no one would hurt him if anything happened to her. The police were confident that the caller was the mother because she gave some information about the boy that wasn't made public. Nearly a month after Jesus was found, the police released the audio of the message. However, there are no reports of any family members coming forward to claim Jesus. A woman claiming to be the mother of a 2-year-old boy found wandering alone at a Bakersfield intersection last month told police she abandoned her son because she is dying of cancer and her husband mistreated her and the boy, according to a recording released Thursday by police. Although several weeks of national media attention showered on the boy resulted in numerous tips and offers of adoption, detectives are still no closer to solving the mystery. The clues have started to slow down. We still have a couple of leads, said Bakersfield Police Lieutenant Jess Moliner. According to an English translation of the May 23 message supplied by Bakersfield Police, the woman, speaking Spanish, quietly begins, "I'm the mother of the baby, the one that is on TV." She goes on to explain, "I left him because we are being mistreated by my husband. If something happens to me, I don't want anything to happen to my baby. I'm sick with cancer and I can die any minute, and I leave you my baby. I want him adopted, and in your hands I want him, my baby, because we are much mistreated. I don't want my baby to be mistreated anymore. In your hands I leave him, sir," she said. She also said the boy's name is Jesus Perez Flores. Police originally said the woman had identified herself as Xochitl, but detectives now say she did not leave a name. Police at first feared that releasing the tape might jeopardize the investigation, but they say they now see no reason to withhold it. "At this point, we are all best served by releasing this to the public, to stimulate more clues and encourage more people to call," Moliner said. "Someone might recognize the caller and the situation that she describes. We hope to reach these people and hope they'll call." 4. Deborah Wolf. Debbie Wolf was a nurse working at Fayetteville Veterans Hospital in North Carolina. She lived alone in a small, isolated cabin around 4 miles on the outskirts of the city with her 2 dogs Morgan and Mason. On the 25th of December in 1985, she finished her shift to most likely make the drive back to her residence, but failed to show up for work the following morning, which was very out of character for the usually reliable Wolf. The hospital could not contact Debbie despite making many phone calls, so after a few hours her mother, Jenny Edwards, and friend, Kevin Gordon, made the trip out to the cabin to check up on her. When they got there, the usually neat and clean property was left in a mess. Debbie's immediate belongings were strewn throughout the house. Her work uniform was found on the kitchen floor. Her bag under her bed and empty beer cars were scattered out front. They played back the messages on Debbie's answer machine in hope of clues, and heard the voice of a man saying that he hoped Debbie didn't miss any more days at work, implying that she had been absent, which was not the case. At the time they were listening to the message, Debbie had only been unaccounted for a few hours into her morning shift that day. Family and friends knew of a male volunteer at the Veterans Hospital who wanted to date Debbie. Despite her rejection, she talked openly about the situation to those around her and had made it clear to the man that friendship would be as far as things would go between them. She also told him that she already had a boyfriend. He was briefly a suspect, and although he refused to take a polygraph test according to the sheriff's department, he did provide them with an alibi before skipping town for a week. Another volunteer was also interested in Debbie. He too was apparently questioned and later cleared. Debbie's dogs, which she usually took very good care of, were loose outside on empty stomachs. After surveying the property and briefly looking around the pond near the cabin, Debbie's mother contacted the local police station, the Cumberland County Sheriff's Department. Captain Jack Watts was on the receiving end of the call and dispatched to the scene. Dogs searched around the general area but did not pick up anything. He did not order a search of the nearby pond, as he believed Jenny Edwards and Kevin Gordon had already done so, despite the fact that they did not have the means. Frustrated at the Cumberland County Sheriff Department's incompetence, Edwards and Gordon privately hired divers of their own to search the pond. Almost a week later, on the 1st of January, Kevin Gordon and a friend of his found the body of Debbie Wolf stuffed into a rusted metal oil drum in around 6 feet of water. Footprints and drag lines were embedded into the mud on the bank. Debbie's mother recognized the drum as a barrel that Wolf used to keep firewood in, near the porch next to the cabin. A quick inspection revealed that the barrel from the cabin was gone, leaving only a ring-shaped indent where it used to be. The following day an autopsy was performed and revealed death by drowning. However, it could not be determined whether the drowning was accidental or if Wolf was the victim of homicide. The local sheriff's department claimed it was probably accidental. The oil drum that Wolf was discovered in also went missing, and police denied that she was even found in it, insisting that the divers had been mistaken. Even more perplexing was the fact that the clothes Debbie was dressed in were either too large for her, or items that no one could ever remember her owning. She was dressed in a bra that was too large, both in cup and back size, a Pittsburgh Steelers shirt that no one had ever seen her wear, brown cords much too big for her, and an Army-issue jacket the origins of which could never be traced. However, North Carolina has one of the largest United States Army installations, Fort Bragg, home to the 82nd Airborne Division. Debbie was also wearing men's Nike sneakers 2 sizes too big for her, which had no mud from the riverbank on them. Police claimed that they interviewed a handful of patients from the hospital, but they lead nowhere. What happened to Debbie Wolf that night? 5. See Gunfire Carson. It's just before midnight in a Rexdale parking lot. 4 men argue loudly inside a car. One is Gunfire Carson, 24. An amateur hockey player and part-time courier. In 5 minutes, a bullet will tear through Mr. Farquharson's heart. He will die, becoming part of what provincial leaders call an alarming wave of violence against black men. But in the last moments of his life, Mr. Farquharson will use his cell phone to secretly record the voices of the men believed to have killed him. Saved message. Thursday, May 17, 11:56 p.m. Before being lured into the car, Mr. Farquharson had watched a Raptors basketball game on television in his nearby housing complex. This is his neighborhood, on Duncanwoods Drive near Islington Avenue and Finch Avenue West. He knows these men, the driver pleading for calm, his friend sitting on the passenger side in front, and the man beside him in the back who is swearing and threatening him. "This ain't no negotiation," shouts the man in the back seat. "This is a robbery." The driver and the men in the back seat are armed and they think Mr. Farquharson is carrying a lot of cash. Mr. Farquharson says he doesn't have the money but could fetch it for them. He sounds desperate. "Yo, let me go get it for them. I swear to God, man, I'll pay for it out of my own pocket and get it for them. I swear to God." Mr. Farquharson knows he's in trouble. He has dialed his own voicemail and for exactly 2 minutes, until the digital recording stops automatically. The phone captures almost every word. Police will later enhance the acoustics and analyze the sound to determine the location of each speaker. "Yo, let me fucking kill you, dude," says the man beside Mr. Farquharson. "I'll kill you." The recording is a jumble of voices, wheedling, cajoling and menacing. "Kick him out the door. I'm gonna fucking kill this." Inaudible, says the same man. "No, let's get this money," replies the driver. At one point, Mr. Farquharson pleads for his life. "I swear, B. Rother, I swear, just don't do this to me, man." The recording ends just before neighbors called 911 at 12:01 a.m., May 18th to report hearing gunfire. Mr. Farquharson was found dead, shot once in the back. When police played an audio tape publicly for the first time at a news conference yesterday, Mr. Farquharson's words made his mother, Julia, frown, take off her glasses and wipe her eyes. It was the first time she'd listened to the enhanced recording, she said, and the first time she'd heard her son begging for mercy. "That's the hardest part," Ms. Farquharson said. "If I was there, they'd have to kill me, too. I don't know how young people can have so much fire inside them and so much hurt." Detective Ken Taylor of the Homicide Squad said he hopes somebody will recognize the voices in the recording, which can be downloaded from the police website at. "This is the first time in my 10 years in homicide that we've ever had a recording like this," Taylor said. Mr. Farquharson's friend escaped just before the shooting, Taylor said, but he's unable to identify the killers. A 24-hour hotline, 416-808-3125, has been set up to handle tips. Mr. Farquharson is one of 18 people who have been shot to death in Toronto this year. Like him, most of the victims have been young and black and their killers have not been found. Around the time of the news conference, Ontario's NDP leader Howard Hampton held one of his own that pointed a finger at what was said to be a common culprit in the shootings. While many members of Toronto's black community have discussed the shootings in terms of black-on-black violence, Mr. Hampton suggested yesterday that systemic institutional racism is to blame for the deaths. The shootings are the result of poverty, hopelessness and other barriers that racist institutions have constructed, Mr. Hampton said. The NDP leader put forward a plan that asks all levels of government to help black businesses and workers, to improve access to cultural centers and affordable housing, and to make police and schools more sensitive to black issues. Mr. Farquharson's mother said she wants witnesses to call police. The final moments this conversation was recorded secretly by Sagun Farquharson on his cell phone's voicemail May 17. Mr. Farquharson and an associate were seated in a car in Rexdale with two men who were trying to rob them of a large sum of money. Mr. Farquharson and his associate tell the men they don't have the cash, but offer to fetch it. Apparently, the man in the back seat with Farquharson was brandishing a gun. Farquharson said that he didn't have any money on him, but he could get money if they wanted it. As the man in the back seat threatened him, Farquharson pleaded for his life. Then the voicemail cut off as it reached its 2-minute warning. At 12:01 a.m., minutes after the voicemail was recorded, a call came into 911 to report gunshots. Police and emergency workers responded to the scene and found Farquharson dead, shot once in the back. Hoping for leads, the police released the voicemail, but the crime remains unsolved. 6. Nara Peck, a Canadian family is demanding action from the federal government after a 28-year-old man died under mysterious circumstances at an airport in Laos. Nara Peck's family was told that he committed suicide on January 22 while being detained in Laos Watay International Airport. But a number of voicemails he left in the hours before he died, combined with troubling autopsy results, are raising questions for Peck's loved ones. His sister Sarina Armsworthy says Peck left 3 messages telling people that Laotian authorities were trying to hurt him and preventing him from leaving the country. She says officials in Laos reported her brother died of 3 stab wounds, but says autopsy results found many more than that on several parts of his body. Armsworthy says the Canadian government hasn't done enough to find out what really happened in Laos and says the family needs their help to learn the truth. The Department of Foreign Affairs did not immediately respond to a request for comment. "We just want answers. We just want the truth," Armsworthy said in a telephone interview from Edmonton. "They're claiming that Nara committed suicide, and we don't believe that at all." Armsworthy said Peck had left Canada in early January on a trip meant to celebrate his recent graduation from Toronto's York University. She said he and 2 friends traveled to the Peck family's ancestral home of Cambodia, then visited Thailand and Laos. His friends planned to extend their travels for a few weeks, but Armsworthy said her brother wanted to fly home to Toronto and rejoin his parents and fiancé. His friends took him to the airport. They took him as far as they could, which was through customs, and they watched him go through customs, she said. After that, everybody just assumed that he was already on the flight back home, but Peck was not homeward bound. According to information relayed to Peck's parents, their son was detained for reasons that were not explained. Peck's family was told that their son tried to kill himself as a result of his detention and died of 3 self-inflicted stab wounds. Police in Toronto broke the news to Peck's father, who also heard the Laotian account of his son's death through a consular official in Ottawa. Armsworthy said the family was immediately skeptical of the suicide finding, saying it was entirely out of character for Peck to go on vacation in order to take his own life. Their suspicions intensified after hearing voicemails he left for his parents, his fiancé's parents and a friend back in Canada. In all 3 of them, he's indicating that we need to call the embassy because they're trying to hurt him, Armsworthy said of the messages. Security has confiscated his boarding pass. They won't let him leave the airport. Armsworthy said Peck also tried to reach out to his fiancée, who he'd been dating for 13 years and was slated to marry in 2016, but got nowhere because she had accidentally left her phone at home that day. The family's certainty that something had gone amiss in Laos crystallized when his body was returned to Canada 3 weeks after his death. Armsworthy said a Canadian autopsy found far more than 3 stab wounds, adding the injuries were on several parts of his body. Consular representatives have told Armsworthy that police in Laos have refused to divulge information about how Peck died, but she has launched a petition in a bid to compel the government to probe for more details. Learning the truth about her brother's fate, she said, will be necessary in order for his loved ones to heal. According to the Laotian government, Baek committed suicide in the airport. A private autopsy was performed in Thailand. It showed that Baek had many wounds, including a stab wound to the right side of his chest that had lacerated his lung. His neck had also been stabbed multiple times, and his right arm had been stabbed once. Finally, there were multiple cuts on his left hand and arm and contusions on both of his hands and his right knee. Due to the gruesome nature of his death, the disturbing voicemails, and the fact that Baek had no history of mental illness, his family believes that he met with foul play in the communist country. 7. Brian Dos Santos. 8 months after the disappearance of the infant Brian Dos Santos Gomez on December 1, the basic details of his story, built by a flurry of media reports in the weeks following his abduction, remain unchanged. The story is more than simple: the kidnapping tale, the two theories suggesting why it happened, the complications of the parents' status as illegal immigrants smuggled into the country, the involvement of Fort Myers police chaplain and relevant Israel Suarez, and the questioning of person of interest Walter Coelho, a Lehigh Acres resident suspected of being involved in human smuggling operations. Coelho was not found to be closely connected to this case. He has since been deported to Brazil. There was the America's Most Wanted episodes, host John Walsh asking people to put politics aside when it comes to finding baby Brian, the $21,000 reward for a tip leading to the arrest of the kidnapper, the still ongoing Amber Alert, an alert containing information about a missing child, issued by the Florida Department of Law Enforcement through radio, television, highway billboards, lottery machines, missing children alert, email notices, and cellular telephone text messaging. There was the midnight vigil led by Suarez, the pictures taken of the baby's mother, Maria Fatima Ramos dos Santos, 23, and father, Gerander Gomez Costa, 26. The press conference is held with Fort Myers Police Chief Hilton Daniels, the collaboration of local, Fort Myers, state, FDLE, and federal, FBI, investigative personnel, along with other private and non-profit groups. Nonprofit Kid Finders Network, Incorporated, for example, uses mobile billboards to display the faces and information of missing children. When the billboards first got there, in the first month or so, they were generating a lot of leads. Company Vice President Sherry Milstead said, "Not so much anymore. It gets out of sight, out of mind with people, so you have to remind them, spark people's interest." Flyers were handed out by local church members, door to door. Leaders of the search for baby Dos Santos Gomez remained confident and hopeful. Mostly anonymous internet bloggers with names like 2 Cents and Billy Bob added hundreds of opinions of their own, that the parents were completely to blame, that the media couldn't be trusted, that everything we heard was simply being made up, that racism was the central factor, that illegal immigration was the central factor, that the baby was in Fort Myers, Tampa, Miami, Mexico, Brazil, Cuba, that the baby was being well cared for, that it wasn't. "We're really not heavily involved in the case at this point, unless the Fort Myers police ask us for more help," FDLE Public Information Officer Larry Long said. But from an FDLE standpoint, the Amber Alert we issued is still ongoing. Psychics weighed in. Baby Dos Santos Gomez was, and still is, lost. His parents continue to live in the tropical trailer park on Linhart Avenue in central Fort Myers. Park manager Thelma Fuentes provided an escort, via golf cart, through the dense clusters of trailers, to the home of Ramos dos Santos and Gomez Costa, late last week. "The cops were here every day," she said, remembering the days from last December, just after the abduction. "Not just the city cops, Reverend Suarez and pastors for the Brazilian community, too." Ramos dos Santos came to the door for this unannounced visit in a black dress, holding a mop. Her bare feet stood on gleaming plastic tiles. When Tess translated, Ramos dos Santos and her husband, who was at work, are still in contact with investigators, she said, but have been given no new information recently, just that they're looking into it. She added, the motivation to live and work has at times been a frustrating process for her husband. She noted, the crushing pain of an enormous personal loss coupled with the relatively difficult life of immigrants, He works when he can, she said. It's been kind of rough. I'm feeling fine. I'm still waiting. The kidnapping suspect was and still is described by police as a heavy-set Spanish woman, 25 to 30 years old, driving a black two-door Ford Explorer Sport circa 1998 to 2003, with peeling window tint, who may or may not have been headed to Tampa, St. Petersburg or Miami with baby Dos Santos Gomez. Another clue to her identity, and therefore perhaps her whereabouts, is the surreal, hypothetical drawing of her face. While the drawing may look something like the suspected kidnapper, it may also look something like a lot of people who happen to be female, Spanish, heavy-set and in their mid-20s. The point, according to Matt Sellers, a Fort Myers police detective, is to keep the public interested, to give people something to look for, if for no other reason than just so they'll keep looking. The sketches keep the public's attention, Sellers said. FBI agent John Kuchta also stressed the importance of public attention. The more this story stays alive in the public's mind, the better chance the case will be resolved, he said. Another clue is the recorded sound of the alleged kidnapper's voice. Law enforcement and news reports indicate the suspect made a fake call to a business during the kidnapping, using Ramos Dos Santos' cell phone. The call was recorded on the business's answering machine and the recording is now available on the FBI's website. Two official theories were developed. One, that the woman simply wanted a baby. Maybe, police suspected, she had lost one of her own recently. Another theory was posed to the media by Hilton Daniels, the Fort Myers police chief, after he learned that the parents were illegal immigrants who still owed a debt to the people who smuggled them into this country. Daniels suggested that because of this debt the baby was taken as either payment or leverage, that the kidnapper was playing a part in a larger plan. That theory has not been ruled out, Sellers said, but added that it's only one of the possibilities, one of hundreds of leads, some simple and some complex, that have been investigated. The FBI's Kuchta echoes that explanation. There's been a lot of publicity and we've covered leads throughout the country, even in South and Central America, and overseas, he said. In the months after the investigation began, publicity went from a gush to a trickle. There aren't a lot of new leads coming in right now, Sellers said. Maybe one new lead in the last 2 weeks. I've had a lot of leads that look great initially, and then kind of fizz out real fast. It's true that there are only so many things you can work on, so many leads to follow and people to talk to. But we're still a long way from that point. To complicate matters, earlier on in the investigation questions were raised about how truthful or forthcoming the parents were being with law enforcement officials, possibly because of their status as illegal immigrants. Sellers dismisses that notion. For the most part, the parents are fully cooperative with the investigation. There is a substantial amount of evidence, both physical and circumstantial, that supports the parents' statements. Immigration, he added, seems to cloud issues. Then there was the language barrier. The parents speak Portuguese, a language similar to Spanish, which added another level of complexity to the investigation. A lot of confusion was caused early on, Sellers concluded. He is now in touch with the parents on a weekly basis to update them on whatever progress has been made, he says. This case is being pursued daily, said Jennifer Soto, a Fort Myers police sergeant who is assigned to the investigation. We are still very hopeful that we will solve this case. Suarez, meanwhile, said that he still sees the parents whenever he can, and that they feel police have not been able to do enough. But at this point, you can't put pressure on the system, he added. It's a difficult case. They have no choice whatsoever but to have patience. There's just not enough evidence, and so many different avenues. 8. The death of Henry McCabe. 8 weeks after late Minnesota Revenue Auditor Henry McCabe's body was found in Rush Lake waters, his family and African community leaders still wait for answers about the circumstances and cause of his death. McCabe, age 32, is determined to have likely died from drowning in fresh waters, according to an autopsy report by the Ramsey County Medical Examiner released to his family. New Brighton and Mountain View's police chiefs said the case remains an open investigation, and they encourage the public to share any information that they might have regarding McCabe's death. He went missing on Labor Day, September 7th, and the search for him went on for weeks. Relatives, friends and volunteers combed various areas in Mounds View and Fridley. He was found dead on November 2nd by a kayaker on Rush Lake in New Brighton. At a meeting on November 25th, Family asked both Mounds View and New Brighton police chiefs how McCabe died. The community wants to understand the manner and cause of death as well as how he got to the lake. The police chief said the manner of death could have been homicide or suicide, that they don't currently have an answer, and they accept the medical examiner's autopsy report. "We may not be able to tell you everything," said Police Chief Jacobson. "We are not trying to hide anything. We still want to know what happened. For now, determining McCabe's manner of death seems to be a difficult task." On October 15th, a few weeks before McCabe was found, his wife, family, and the Henry McCabe search team, created by volunteers, met with Chief Thomas Kinney of the Mounds View Police Department to address concerns and unanswered questions. At the meeting, Kinney assured Corrine, the late McCabe's wife, and community leaders that the case is still under investigation, and promised to work with the family. "This case is unique and remains under investigation as to what might have happened to Henry," Chief Kinney told the MSR in October. "I just want to stress that anyone with information on Henry. Come forward with any information. If they are reluctant to do so for whatever their reasons are, we would work with them." On Sunday, November 8th, a fundraiser bake sale was held at the Northern Light Church of Christ in Brooklyn Park. According to Cian Nyanwet, a member of McCabe's search party, all proceeds will go towards the funeral arrangement for Henry. As the family and the Liberian community prepare to lay McCabe to rest, questions still linger as to how he really died and why no trace of a crime can be found. His mother, Isatar Karma, is expected to travel from Monrovia, Liberia to witness her son's funeral. "For me the whole issue is emotional, and a little psychological on all of us," said Isaac Witherspoon, a friend and workmate at the Minnesota State Revenue Department for 3 years. "At lunchtime, we'd all sit together, Sally, myself and Henry. Now when people only see the two of us, myself and Sally, they ask, where is Henry? So, we carry that weight of him with us at work." McCabe is remembered as a gentleman with a drive to succeed and move forward in life who often shared his lunch with colleagues. Many believe he didn't go to Rush Lake on his own accord, that somebody else was responsible for McCabe's death. "Somebody killed that man, somebody got to pay for it," said David Kessel, a longtime friend of McCabe. "For somebody to die like that, it is shameful. It is a scare in our community. Somebody got to pay for it. I couldn't believe it. I don't think I could sleep tonight." "We understand the concerns from the community. We understand the sense of loss," said New Brighton Police Chief Bob Jacobson. "The difficulty it is losing a loved one, losing a member of the community. That is very difficult for any community to understand and come to grips with a death. Certainly, it is more difficult when it is a death as tragic as this one. Someone hasn't been seen for a period of time, and there are still questions of how Mr. McCabe arrived, where he was found." He added that both New Brighton and Mounds View communities joined Liberians in Minnesota in grieving and seeking the truth for the late McCabe. The police and the medical examiner's officer will continue pursuing the case for answers. "We hope that the Liberian communities and all communities inclusive. Can understand what happened to McCabe and have confidence that we're going to investigate this fully," said Jacobson. "We are all committed in doing a thorough and professional investigation to determine the cause and manner of death and what happened to McCabe. We don't want to leave any stone unturned to find the answers to what questions that we may have." Chief Kinney said all the meetings with the family and Liberian community leaders are helping in building their relationships and understanding how law enforcement works. He added that Mounds View officers will continue to work together with investigators in New Brighton in seeking answers for McCabe's death. For anyone that might have information they have been reluctant to share or talk about to law enforcement, we're very much open to hearing that, and very much want to hear that to help us get resolution to this, said Kinney. The wake-keeping and funeral services for Henry McCabe were held on December 18th and 19th at the Brooklyn Methodist Church in Brooklyn Center. 9. Original Night Stalker. One of the most terrifying, unidentified serial killers in U.S. history is the original Night Stalker, aka the Golden State Killer, who is not to be confused with the Night Stalker, Richard Ramirez. Active between 1979 and 1986 in Southern California, the original Night Stalker was described as an athletic white male in his 20s who killed at least 10 people. His modus operandi was to break into a house where a woman or a couple lived and tie them up with twine. Although he shot one couple, He beat the rest of them to death. All the women were sexually assaulted. Then, for no apparent reason, he stopped killing after May 1986. In 2001, DNA tests showed that the original Night Stalker and a terrifying serial rapist called the East Area Rapist were the same person. The East Area Rapist was responsible for at least 40 rapes between June 1976 and July 1979, just before the original Night Stalker began his spree. It began in June of 1976, on Paseo Drive in a Rancho Cordova neighborhood. A man likely in his early 20s snuck into a woman's home in the middle of the night and sexually assaulted her. A month later, he would go across the American River and strike again, this time raping a teenage girl in a Carmichael neighborhood. The following month, he would go back to the area of his first reported attack. This time his victim escaped. 6 days later in Carmichael, he would strike again. 4 more rapes occurred in October 1976, in Citrus Heights, Rancho Cordova, Carmichael and again in Rancho Cordova. The manhunt was on and police sketch artists put pencil to paper. The white male in blue athletic shoes would oftentimes wear a mask and always carry a gun, knife or both. The plan was the same, getting in through an unlocked door or window, or jimmying the lock. To wake his victims, he would shine a flashlight in their eyes as he stood at the foot of their bed. He started with women who lived alone, then moved to couples at one point. He'd have the female victim tie up her partner with brand new shoestrings. He'd put the man face down and stack dishes on his back, taking his victim to another room. He would warn if he heard the dishes rattle, he would kill his victim. Even more chilling is an answering message he left for a victim the day after he sexually assaulted her, threatening to kill her as he breathed heavily on the phone. There were several times when he was close to being caught, but officers were able to catch him. He proved to be so elusive because he struck near open spaces with trails and fields to make a quick getaway. Detectives also believe he would attend some of the emergency town hall meetings during his crime spree in search of his next victim. A man who was particularly vocal at a meeting at Myra Loma High School was tied up weeks later and his wife was sexually assaulted. In February 1978, near a well-kept neighborhood in Rancho Cordova, husband and wife Brian and Katie Maggiore saw a suspicious person on their property. Both were shot in the backyard. He would rape 9 more victims in the months that followed in Concord and Fremont, leaving behind the telltale signs of his attacks. In all, investigators say he sexually assaulted close to 50 women in a 3-year span. He went on to kill 10 people, first in Santa Barbara County, then in Orange County. DNA evidence from the murders proved it was the same suspect who had raped so many women. Investigators want to hear from people who have information in hopes of catching him decades later. Some in law enforcement say the case launched the Sacramento County Sheriff's K-9 Squad, because search dogs played such an important role in trying to find the rapist. Police believe that the original Night Stalker may be dead or in prison. However, in 2001, a detective on the case said that one of the victims had received a phone call in 1990 or 1991 from a man claiming to be the original Night Stalker. She spoke with him for a minute. In the background, she heard a woman and children talking, suggesting that he may still be alive and on the loose.